The problem that Rehoboam walked into was that his father did not love God. Now, he can say he loved God, but if you love me, the problem with Solomon is that he didn't love the people. I think he loved his job. I really see Solomon as a guy who really loved his job. He liked what he did. He liked being wise and assessing and building and designing and architecting, and he was a great administrator and he was a great politician. He married, half these women he married were surrounding kingdoms' daughters, and he had everything going for him in the world. He pretty much sold his soul to the devils. But he taxed the people hard, really hard. He'd take whole tribes and turn them into forced labor groups. So all this wealth of Solomon's glory were the blood of his own people who were forced because he took. Now, when Rehoboam got into position and Solomon had passed away, his son, who just became king, had to decide when the people came to him, they were ready for a revolt, and they asked Rehoboam, don't do like your father did. We want you to reduce the taxes. Don't force us. Don't take from us. Be easy on us. And Rehoboam consulted with the elders, the older people, and they said, better listen to the people and you better take it easy on them. I'm paraphrasing here from 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 11. And Rehoboam talked to the young people, and the young people were seeing opportunity for power, and they're like, take. So Rehoboam decided this was his opportunity of power, and he says in chapter 12, verse 11, whereas my father loaded you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My fathers disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions. And then Jeroboam, who was a lead administrator in the government, and all the people came to Rehoboam on the third day, as the king has directed, saying, return to me on the third day. And the king answered the people harshly, for he forsook the advice of the elders which they had given him. Now Jeroboam is a person who's working in the government, and he's got power, but he's not part of the Davidic line. He's not related to David. But a prophet goes to Jeroboam shortly after this in chapter 26, and the prophet says,
You mean verse 26?
I'm sorry, yeah, verse 26.
Verse 26.
Actually, that's not the verse I was looking for. Inside this chapter, or shortly before it, a prophet comes to Jeroboam and tells him that you shall have half the kingdom. You shall have 10 tribes of the kingdom. God is going to give it to you. And if you obey my commandments and you do what I tell you to do, I will make an everlasting covenant with you and your generations, and you shall serve me, and I will bless you. And it didn't matter that Jeroboam was part of David's lineage. God was looking for a relationship. Everett?
As Everett comes up, I might mention in verse 20 of chapter 12, no one remained loyal to the house of David except the tribe of Judah. And the loyalty to the house of David was not the issue. The loyalty to the house of God was the issue. The loyalty to God himself. But they got very confused because the kingdoms began to produce chaos.
This is Everett Thorne. Trevor, why don't you introduce yourself and yeah.
Is this on? Okay. Yeah, my name's Everett Thorne. I've lived in this community for quite a while. I've been quite familiar with this organization. I'm now retired and have some time, and so I'm happy to dedicate what of that I can to the learning process here today. We've talked about Solomon, we talked about Jeroboam and Rehoboam.
No, we haven't talked about Rehoboam. Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry. I just want to make sure.
I'm happy to talk about him. Before we launch into the list of kings, good, bad, and indifferent, and wicked, and all of that, I would like to emphasize that the book of Kings, 1st and 2nd Kings, is not just a history book. I think everything about Scripture begs personal application. So we don't just read about these kings as somebody isolated, unlike anything we would ever come in contact with. We have to see what similarities there are. We also can use both good and bad examples in our survey of what God might be trying to tell us. We avoid being like the bad ones, and we try to adhere to being like the good kings. But I want to say something else, too, and that is that kings, does this have to be on?
No.
Does it? Okay, well, I'll just stay out of the way. Power corrupts. You've heard that. And you've heard it, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you want to find out a person's character, give them power. I have never had a Bathsheba incident in my life. Is that because I'm so morally pure, or is that because I never looked out the window and saw a woman bathing and had the authority, resource, and power to send somebody down and order that she come to my chambers? You see what power gives you? More opportunities, requiring more responsibilities. So before we're too harsh on these kings, recognize that some of them were drunk with power. And poor Solomon didn't have the years of being a shepherd, the years of running and hiding in caves as his father did, the relationship of the Lord where he was pouring his heart out and hearing God speak to him. Nor was he 7 years as king in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. Solomon was green. He was untried. And what does it say in James? It says that count it all joy when you meet various trials, for the testing of your faith produces endurance. He had no endurance. He had a humility at the beginning, but as time went on, it proved to be that he needed endurance. So as we move on down the list, Rehoboam had a son by the name of Abijah, who was really briefly a king for 3 years. And at this time that there was continual war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And he committed the sins of his father, and his heart was not fully devoted to God. So as we move beyond him, we then go down to Asa.